Everyone. Well, wherever you are in the world, this is my morning in Bali. On the call with us now, we have Lisa Harrison out in Australia. BZ, I have absolutely no clue where you are.
Washington State.
BZ in Washington State. And Alex, Valerie, and Heather are in Washington, D.C. And this call is being recorded, so it's not going out live. And this morning we're going to have a nice discussion to go over a number of topics. However, we're not going to go all the way back to the beginning. There is a lot of material to cover the backstory with some of this stuff. www.i-uv.com, as well as a number of other blogs and YouTube videos. So for those of you that are picking up at this end, go back and do your homework, do some research, and you can get caught up on where we are now in real time, which it sounds like is a very exciting place to be. So with that very little brief backstory now laid, let's jump right into it. First of all, how's everybody doing?
Great.
Wonderful. So Heather, why don't you take the opportunity to perhaps give us a little bit of backstory going back to the buildup of events that took place leading to the developments that happened on July 5th with the big announcements from Harvey and Randy and many others jumping in and using their TDA accounts. Is that an okay place to start?
Yeah, that's fine. So, well, I believe Harvey Dent posted his first video on July 1st. And I was currently in Houston working with Lisa Shannon on the factualized trust stuff. And I'd gotten a call from Randy Bean, and we'd been working and communicating for quite a while. And so he just said, okay, I've got this TDA stuff I want you to look at. So he sent me Harvey's video. I just said, yeah. By that time, excuse me? Someone say something?
Nope.
Oh, that's me. It's feedback.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Okay. And so anyways, Randy had called me and said to watch the video and watched Harvey's stuff. And of course, it's not new stuff. This is stuff that's been around for a long time. The new part is the electronic applications. Okay. So Randy he went full on board. I just told him I'm working on the factualized trust stuff, which is basically your underwriting to use these things. And so he just went full board. He would keep me updated on what his progress was, what his success was, and he would ask a few questions regarding banking operations. So we went through that. But it was probably the 5th or the 6th, and I went in to go test a few things because he had asked on that site. So I said, okay, I'll go ahead and test a few things out here because I could already feel the buildup. Just as the buildup that was done prior to this stuff coming out, there was another buildup that was happening, and I could feel the pressure that was about to come down. So I really worked hard on the factualized trust so everyone had their ownership, title, and authority. And Randy went faster than I could, essentially, is what happened. And by the 11th, you guys already have that other video of what went down, which Val and Alex were present, and I was present via phone. And at that point, when they took it, we just sort of watched. Plus, I was getting calls from my intel guys that were, basically Randy was in a situation at this point. They were going to make an example of him, was to disappear him or, kill him off kind of a thing. Taking it through Colorado with a few stops off to Arkansas camp and Texas camp was the intel that I had. So the main important part for me at that point was doing the factualized trust stuff. We went fast so that at least Randy had that to give to everyone. And that's why they had to move so fast and were making, I guess you could say, mistakes, but really for me, they're originals. So they were doing it so that, this could be made visible. So at that point, my job was to keep Randy alive and not disappeared. So Colorado and all that stuff, they didn't file the affidavits of complaint for the warrants in the clerk's office. They only gave the back side of it. And when you look at the front side, the affidavit, where someone has to actually make a statement, they're very obvious, and you can tell supposedly these inmates that made the affidavits, it wasn't. It was a complete, you had Parker Still, who's military intelligence, who works with David Parker, who's also military intelligence, which is currently working at multiple places, the military, USAA Bank, where Randy is, as well as Texas Police Tech, something like that. He's an IT expert, right? So this is what Randy had to deal with, and this is what I had to deal with, and there were a lot of surprises, but Randy had his own design. So when I was in Houston, that's what it came down to, is Val and Alex went to the first court date, which was on a Monday. What day?
Monday of this week.
17th.
So, yeah.
The 17th.
Yep.
They were in court, and they called me and put me on speaker so that I could actually hear what was going on, but I couldn't. And so I'm going to leave it to them, unless you have some questions, I'm going to leave it to them to describe what Randy looked like, what the whole situation looked like, and what went on that day, because I wasn't present. But I was on the phone and did have some communication with a lawyer that I had to enlist to assist us, because they only let attorneys speak, Tennessee attorneys speak in court there. So do you have any questions, guys, before Alex jump in?
Yeah. Real quick, for the sake of context, for those that are going to be watching this recording, what we're talking about now is Randall Keith Bean. The story is out on a number of different blog posts. Essentially, the process that he went through was he utilized his Treasury Direct account to purchase a number of CDs, high volume CDs, through his USAA bank. At which time those were processed, went through. He did everything legally, lawfully, by the book. All his I's were dotted, T's were crossed. There was nothing he did that was illegal, and he used those funds in his USAA bank to authorize a wire transfer to make the purchase of a very large, oversized coach to the tune of $500,000. And then, what was it, a number of days later, he was then arrested without warrant, without charges, by officers that were unwilling to really share who they were. It's what it sounds like from the audio that went out. People can go back and listen to that recording. So that was the backstory that's now led up to the day of court, which you guys are going into now. Did I miss any details?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
This is BZ. Heather, if you can just explain, one of the reasons that they couldn't have a proper warrant and all of those things was because Randy, if this is correct, Randy had the factual trust. He'd filled it all out. It was all personalized. It was a wedding signature. It was notarized. You had it and you submitted it. And so that gummed up those works. So that's just one point of clarification. Then you said there's a David Parker inside USAA he's military as well, USA is, but so he was kind of orchestrating this from within USAA. And the last part that you pointed out, that they were going to basically just off him, which makes sense. And when you're talking about the way things unfolded, it seems to me that having it go viral, they figured, well, that would be bad for them, but good because it would scare people and they would all go away, and it had the exact opposite.
Well, I think, why don't we do this? If we go through what happens on the 17th in the courtroom, and then on the 18th in the courtroom when I joined with Alex and Val, and then we'll go over towards the end what has gone on strategically, as well as what we believe at this point, based on the data, of how Parker Still, the DOJ, and FBI are in really, deep crap. Yes, they did not have a warrant at all that day, and they were going to dumb one up if the paperwork and stuff hadn't been turned in, showing Randy's proof of ownership, title, and authority. And that's why they acted so fast, was because we were turning it in at that point.
Right. I just wanted to clarify that, because people are still thinking, well, Randy did this whole process and oh my God, look what they did to him. And it's important to know how key a role for people listening that the Factualized Trust played in, obviously didn't save him from what he went through, but at least stopping it.
Yeah, in fact, the charges that they put him in under, because they had to spend 3.5 hours, I guess, trying to figure out what to charge him with, because they couldn't charge him with fraud, they couldn't charge him with theft, they couldn't charge him with identity theft or anything else, because it was his cash, it was his originating funds, he had proof of ownership, title, and authority, so they couldn't touch him for that or the coach. And the coach people had the cash. He had the MSO, which is the birth certificate of the vehicle, and he had the vehicle. So basically, it was a mafia operation under the badge of DOJ, multiple badges of DOJ, and Knox sheriffs and everyone else. And you're going to hear kind of how it played out with the U.S. Marshals and the Knox sheriffs and the federal general attorneys or attorney generals. They called them generals inside of it. It is the most bizarre experience I've ever had in court anywhere on this planet. And I've been in different courts in this planet, so it was really odd. And that actually, the experience had a significant impact on what decisions we made, boots on the ground, so that Randy would stay alive and not disappear. So that's how Alex and Val and I met in person the first time, and then I got to work with them on the 18th, and it was amazing what went down, and we'll go into that, but I think it's important that you hear what it was like the day before on the 17th when Alex, Val, and Patricia went in, so you can really have a point of reference for even what's happening now in DC. Okay, so Alex, Val, do you want to hop in?
Okay. So Patricia, I think her last name is Crawford. She is Randy's school. They've been childhood friends. They have been friends forever. And so she has been very instrumental in this. And if she catches this, we love you, Patricia, and hope you're doing good, because she has done so much digging. She actually is a paralegal, so her expertise, as Alex and I, we were just kind of, we didn't know what to do. So we were just following the advice of Heather. We were kind of boots on the ground in Knoxville, and Patricia's actually in Asheboro, North Carolina. So she arrived on Sunday night late, actually Monday morning, and went to us, with us to the courtroom in Knox County in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we got there, I don't know, 8:30, 9 o'clock or so. And they have, it's not like the kind of courtroom that you see on TV. It's obviously a rectangular room, but the judge is in the corner. He's kind of sectioned off in one of the corners. The inmates or the defendants are all behind a frosted glass that sits kind of across from the judge. There's a podium in the center, so it's kind of at a right angle. And then the defendant attorneys are on one side, and then the attorney generals are on the other side. The audience is split up, or the spectators. On the left side is the spectators. On the right side is additional attorneys, victims, and witnesses. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of lay of the land. The parameter of the room, you can walk around it up until the judge's area on one side, and then up until the frosted glass where the inmates are. So I didn't see Randy right away when we walked in on Monday, but Patricia did. And Randy is a very, very meticulous, he's slim, very trim, very fastidious. But he looked, when I first saw him, finally, he is gaunt. He was gray. He was, his cheeks had sunk in. He looked, like he had lost at least 20 pounds over the course of, 6 days. He really looked bad. bless his heart. So, doing what I do, just start pumping the energy into him, filling the room. I have a lot of friends that work, they work both with biofeedback and they work in the energetic realm. They were working on the room in and of itself. They were using different lights and shapes and things like that to add tenderness and gentle energies to everybody in there and to kind of harmonize the room in and of itself. All of the attorney generals, they called general. So the assistant attorney general for the state that was prosecuting Randy, his name is Judson Davis.
Judson Davis.
And they call him General Davis. This took us a while to figure out, who are these generals? They kept referring General Davis, General Walsh, and I'm looking like for military people, and I'm like, there aren't any there. So I finally figured out, oh, that must be like the Attorney General that they're speaking of. They kind of buried Randy in the middle, and so we heard a lot of cases prior to.
Yeah, there was probably, what do you think, 30, 40 inmates sitting back behind that glass.
Mm-hmm. And they all kind of wait and turn. The attorneys, they're haggling, this whole time back and forth about the charges and,
Well, to begin with, they spent almost an hour before the judge even walked into the court after they started this, so that they could take care of business without even having to go in front of the judge.
Yeah. So it's a nasty deal doing thing. And, so they're all haggling back and forth, basically, trading favors. Yeah. So we watched that whole thing go down. And then the judge, his name is Chuck Cerny, I think you have pronounced it, Cerny. And that is obviously his courtroom. He owns it. And he actually comes across as kind of a strict yet concerning fatherly type. He inserts a lot of humor into his sentencing and into his instruction to the inmates. He constantly refers to the attorneys as the most excellent, intelligent, and hardworking attorney, the attorney who you should appreciate more than you ever will know. He kind of speaks like that. And so we actually got a pretty good vibe from him because of the way he would make a little humor, kind of break up the intensity of the whole situation. So, okay, so prior to this, Heather had communicated with Patricia because Randy he didn't have access to phone numbers. So all he had access to was Patricia's phone number, and another gals that were friends couldn't call us, couldn't call Heather because he didn't have the numbers memorized. So he called Patricia. Heather advised her to ensure that he did not sign any extradition orders. That was for Colorado, because that is why he was being brought to court in front of the judge on Monday. That was the warrant that they were addressing or prosecuting him for. So when his time was called, it was a little confusing because he stepped forward and said, he didn't have an attorney, and they said, well, if you can't afford one, we can assign you one. And he said, no, I have $27 million in a trust. And they all kind of looked at him, they're looking around the chuckles here and there. And one of the public defendants kind of came over to us and said, he can't, he doesn't qualify for a public defender if he really does have $27 million. And so it was kind of confusing. And so what happened was the judge sort of sent him back to sit down because basically they were trying to identify if he truly was the Randall Keith Bean that Jasper, Colorado was looking for. And of course he's not, because Jasper, Colorado is a ghost town. So he went to sit back down, and Heather had advised Patricia at this time to just grab a lawyer. And so the lawyer that was standing in front of us, the public defender, came and said, here's a good guy. His name is Forrest Wallace. and he and Patricia left the room. You went too, didn't you?
Yeah.
So, and Alex, and worked with Heather on the phone on what, to hire him or not to hire him, and what to get Randy through in that moment for Monday to get rid of this Colorado mystery.
Okay, so Forrest, this is gonna lead up to what's gone down, so you can understand what happened on the 18th. Is that Forrest Wallace and I talked on the phone. I told him there is no such place as Jasper, Colorado, and that it was a bogus warrant. And he said, well, I don't know, there's some confusion here. And he said, I'm holding 2 warrants here. And I said, well, there's no Jasper, Colorado. That is not, he goes, no, now there's a 3rd one. He goes, South Carolina. And because everyone had posted up about Colorado and about the, court hearings, the DOJ's website stuff that VZ and everyone were posting. So they knew that it wasn't going to go just slide on by. Okay. Colorado is the military stuff. You get them over to Colorado and you just don't see them again. And Randy has his own history with military, and that stuff will all come visible with space programs and everything else. So I'm going to leave that aside for right now. But as far as Colorado, it doesn't exist. So he said, well, I was just handed, because before there was only 2 warrants, the Knox warrant, which was based off of the supposed Colorado warrant. And as I was talking to Forrest, he goes, well, someone just handed me right before I came another 3rd warrant. And he said that one, they just told me that they're going to dismiss the Colorado warrant. And now they're going to go in on this South Carolina warrant. I said, okay, I don't know what's going on. I haven't seen a South Carolina warrant. And he goes, I don't know either. This is what just came in. So they had to switch it up because too many people were watching. Randy's too visible. And then this is a political case, even more so. This is a global case, right, with the TVA accounts and everything else. I know who some of the people are that were behind the order to grab Randy, and they're being spoken with to calm down so that they know that this is a win-win for everyone, and it's moving along. But the point was to not have Randy touch. So they got I told them just go in and ask for the Colorado case to be dismissed, and then to set the other stuff aside till tomorrow. I'm getting a plane right now and I'm on my way. And he said, well, are you licensed? I said, no. And he goes, in Tennessee, they will not let you even step forward. He goes, you could try to ask for a limited permission to go before the court, but he goes, but they aren't going to listen to you if you're not from Tennessee, period. And so I said, okay, I'll meet you at your office. And we worked it out to where I'd meet him in the morning and we go over everything. Meanwhile, I hired him to do some research so that our teams could get where they needed to be and I could get where I needed to be. And that is basically what happened that day in my part. But Wallace was competent to do the job I asked him to do for that moment. And then he and I would meet in the morning after, and then I could assess his competency and be able to move forward to do what I needed him to do. And I said, essentially, to give him notice, I wanted him to be 1st chair, I would be 2nd chair, and I wanted to get back in the back room where all DOJ and the attorneys meet and do their haggling. And I wanted to be able to speak with Randy. And you can only do that if you're 2nd chair. And that's how I normally work anything, whether it's international or national, is I always sit 2nd chair and the local sits 1st. And that leads into the setup for the 18th. But go ahead and finish. Did you have any other comments on the 17th?
Not really. We kept the military, the marshals, and the uniformed officers there was a lot of them. Granted, there was a case that came before the judge that I don't know, what do you call the ununiformed ones? The plainclothes?
The plainclothes.
He had to
US Marshal.
Yeah, he had to testify, so he was there and there was support for him for a different case. But there were a lot of uniformed deputies, police, very, very visible with the uniforms. I don't
On the
know.
17th.
On the 17th, on Monday. I don't know what marshals look like. I can only imagine, but I didn't have eyes for them that day.
How was Randall? You said because he was shackled differently.
Yeah, he just was handcuffed on Monday. He just had the 2 handcuffs on his wrists on Monday. So
Okay.
that's noteworthy because on Tuesday it changes.
They were also they were big sticklers on not making eye contact with the inmates, and if the inmates tried to make contact, they scold them, and then they come over and scold anybody in the audience. And at the beginning, it wasn't so obvious with like Valerie and me, with Randy. But towards the end of the day, you could tell that they had been watching, and they were really eagle-eyeing us too. And they really got after Randy several times to focus forward.
On Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on the 18th, it got worse. But anyway, we'll go into that.
Okay. So, do you have any questions so far? I know this is detailed, but the detail is required so that you can understand what work went down and that energetics now has transcended its old definitions. Because we're about to get into the energetic Mexican standoff that occurred on Tuesday, the 18th.
Can you just clarify, the energetics have changed their old standards? What is that, so people can understand that?
The energetic has basically transcended its old definition. People would think energetic, you say energetic, and I do the energetics and all this, and you think woo-woo. You think something that you can't really see, something that you can't see the cause, although you may see the effect, and you attribute it to something else. Now there is visible and obvious cause and effect to energetics. And you can tell who's doing that. Everyone, as you'll hear in our recount of the Tuesday, the 18th court hearing, you'll be able to see the actual recognition by everyone in that courtroom of the energetics and the cause and effect that was done that day. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and is that just for this case in this courtroom with these beings, or is that planet-wide?
What do you want it to be?
Planet-wide.
Well, I say that, and I'm jesting, but I'm not, because this is about everyone and what they feel comfortable with. I am completely comfortable with doing energetics. I do it all the time, and those that are knowing know what's going on, but it's always been basically under the radar for anyone else around and not being oblivious, being basically oblivious. Now it is a matter of you stand in your own power, you stand in your own being, and you take the mask off and you just let everyone see, right? You want to apply this, you want to do this and use your abilities, do it. So BZ, if you want it planet-wide, you do your part, I do mine. Everyone does their part with no more masks, and you make it with complete context and transparency, which is what happened on Tuesday, which has led to the most fun, most absolutely crazy fun doings and experiences here all the way to DC. I mean, it just got crazier in Knoxville. So we knew that we had to move to DC to get everything else done. And Val and Alex were so wonderful on the 18th. Working with them was my first time that I was like, absolutely got to do DC. And so that's what we did. And it's gone past speed of heart. So Judy Dora, I did go faster than the speed of heart. I told you.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Let's shuffle to Tuesday.
Okay.
First up, Heather came in on Monday night, so we picked her up at about 10:30. Got settled. We were working at a Randy's place just because we didn't have any other place
That's
to
where
work.
we were at.
We were
when
staying.
This all went down. So.
Okay. So Randy wouldn't even start all of this until these two showed up. And I'd never met Val and Alex before. I'd never met Patricia before. And watching those, it's what I call Randy's intimate team. Everyone has their own intimate teams. Randall did an incredible job prepping everyone. Patricia's had years of work, plus she's a paralegal, but she's had years of experience with Randall. Okay. And these two were already there, so they picked me up. And it's funny because right now, not just planetary, but universally, everyone's going through a total recall of anything that was forgotten in order to come through, and do these experiences, all that memory is coming back for everyone. And so when I get there, we'd had a couple of discussions on my way there, and they were like, yeah, just there's data here that we aren't aware of, things that we need to talk about, and things that weren't adding up with what they had, experienced with Randy. And so I explained to them a little bit about the military deep cover as well as space program deep cover. And then when I got there, and I had suggested, watch Cypher. I mean, as far as Randy triggering out, it's going to be very difficult for him. He's going to be nerve-wracking, and it's proven true at this point, and even aggressive, because he's having such a hard time as he's triggering out and getting all his recalls back. And so when we get there to his apartment, they were like, okay, since we've done all this, we've noticed that Randy's apartment, I mean, if you look, there's nothing personal in his apartment. No photos of him or his family or friends. No really personal items at all. And when you go in there, it looks like a stage set. And we've seen those before, at least at the industry and levels that I've worked at. And they're fronts, right? Safe houses, whatever you want to call them. And it's only a couple blocks from the federal courthouse. And it's not a coincidence that Randy chose Knoxville, Tennessee to actually have his place, which is where Parker Still, who is also military, is headquartered out of. And we'll get more into this as this all comes out. But Parker Still basically runs your shadow operations within DOJ and FBI. So if you have something that you need to have done on the banking side or the families behind banking, Parker Still is the one that you call. Apparently, is how it's come out, how the data is shown. And so now Parker's kind of in a bit. Well, you could tell when I walked into the courtroom, we get there, and I've been in sessions as a prosecutor and everything else. You get these warnings like DOJ, FBI, sheriff's office will come in and sit the prosecutors and the judges down. Well, they'll do it separately. Obviously, judges wouldn't sit with attorneys, but they would have their own briefing. And basically, they would say something to the effect of, and I'll just use myself as an example. We have a woman coming in, and they'll pass her the picture around. Her name is Heather Ann Tucci Giraffe. We suspect her of this, and this. We believe she's working in collusion with Randall Keith Bean. And keep your eyes out, keep your eyes open, and keep a lookout for anything. And let us know right away if there's an issue. Okay, this is the kind of thing that they would do with prosecutors if they expect someone to come in, especially Parker. His whole case fell apart, or I shouldn't say case, his whole plan had fallen apart. No Colorado. Okay, so we get in there, and it's obvious just from that moment there was two U.S. Marshals plus a third one, Mr. Steve Freeman. Funny enough, there's a whole irony in that with the Freemans happened in Montana, and it was the U.S. Marshals involved. So we have those three, and Steve Freeman, U.S. Marshal, acts as kind of like a sergeant at arms on the congressional floor. That was kind of his job. So you had 1, 2, and 2 sheriffs initially. And Randy, as I walked in, they have a partition, so really if you sit in the pews, you can't really see him. I walked in and I was looking for Forrest Wallace. Oh, I should go back to that.
Talk about the meeting with him.
Okay, I apologize, bear with me. There was another piece that was very important, because in order for you to see the shifting of attitudes and beliefs in such a short period of time, it's important for you to hear about our conversation and meeting with Forrest Wallace, the attorney, which I had ad hoc hired the day before, and asked him to do some research and grab anything he could, NCIC, the affidavits from the bogus warrants, and anything else he could find. So we go to his office,
which was only a half a block from where Randy was living.
Right.
So no coincidence.
Half a block from Randy's place. And we finally get into his office, and he comes down, and there's a definite attitude change, at least from the man I spoke to the day before. And he goes, why don't we go in the conference room? And you can tell he really doesn't want to be there at this moment. And we get in the conference room, and he goes, okay. I go, so how did it go? And he goes, yeah, I did all the research you asked me to. I was like, okay, not a problem. And we had worked out the day before a fee of $250 an hour for any work that he did. He insisted on a $2,500 flat fee, and I said $250 because I don't expect this case to go any further than tomorrow. And so he agreed. We get in there in the morning, and he says, okay, I've got that stuff. He goes, so how do you want to do this? And I said, look, what I want to do is, I'm the one that's hiring you. I want you to go in first chair. I go in second chair. And I said, all I want you to do is go into the DOJ. I want to go back in the DOJ. I want to hear what they have to say. And then from there, you and I will have a conversation. And then we'll go over and we'll talk to Randy. So he has every single piece of data, because this is his operation that got started here. I said, I'm basically just, it's more of a support thing. And he sighs. And he goes, look, I Googled you. I was like, I bet you did. And he just kind of shook his head. He goes, I don't know what's going on. He goes, but they're not going to listen to anyone who's not a Tennessee lawyer. They will not let you in the back. And I said, well, other times that I've done this, I've had no problem. So what's the problem? And he sort of went into the logistics of, and really the character of this DA, this General Davis. And I said, look, DOJ has completely fucked all this up. And he goes, well, it's not DOJ, it's Attorney General. I said, yeah. He goes, it's a state agency. I was like, yeah, it's a franchise. Okay, so I get it. You don't need to school me on that. I said, I just want you to be first chair. I'll be second. He was really resistant. And I looked at him and I go, you don't want me to be second chair, do you? You really don't want me in there, do you? And he was like, because this is just a simple extradition. Who cares if he gets extradited? And that's when I about lost it. And I said, you have no idea what the facts of this case are. I said, it's not what it appears. I said, that Colorado warrant, it was bogus, yes, but it was so much more than that. I said, you have no idea what Randall has gone in to do for everyone. He went in to uncover the shadow parts of the governments that are running around, because you have people touching accounts that are in their names. It's the Treasury Direct accounts. I go, you have one, your kids have one. Randall did this for you guys. I said, and I'm just keeping him alive, and so he doesn't disappear. And that's what Colorado was all about. And he just kind of sat there, and you could kind of see he was resisting and he went to, you could see his wheels going to a script. And then it was just kind of like, well, and then he went to the thing that was most comfortable. Well, who's going to pay me? I've done work here. And I was like, how much have you done? And he goes, 2 hours. I said, fine, $500. That's what I owe you, right? I said, I will go to an ATM right now and I'll get you 500. That way it's not an issue.
Well, first you wanted to use your credit card.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to use my credit card. And he said, no. I said, you have no. Anyways, long story short, I just said, I'll go to the cash machine. I'll get it. And then I don't want money to be an issue. And you'll be paid for what you're going to do today after. And I said, so that's the plan. Now we're going to readjust it. You go back to the DOJ. And he goes, it's not DOJ. I was like, fine, fucking Attorney General. You go back to Attorney General. Figure out what he wants to say. You come back to me. Tell me what he says. Then I'm going to, along with that data, you're going to give to Randall what the Attorney General said. I want you to tell him what I'm saying. And then you come back to me and tell me what he says. All right, fine. And he's like, is Randall hiring me or are you? And I said, I am. That way you answer me. He did nothing what I said. And he said he would, but he didn't. And so, and I love Forrest. It worked out, right? This is a guy who basically just wishes that we never even showed up in his office. Okay. At this point, he's just, you can tell he's afraid of what he's going to have to deal with from peers and colleagues at this point. Okay. He goes in, we go into court. I look for him and I'm looking in the pit and some officer comes up to me, and a sheriff, because I'm standing at the pit and I see Randy, and Randy and I are standing there and I'm smiling. I am literally just smiling. I don't say a word because I know how it all works. Any kind of communication whatsoever. Typically, eye contact has never been an issue in any courtroom I've ever been in. So this is my first experience where they don't even want you to have eye contact, yet every other inmate could. In fact, they were having communication. They were talking to each other, and the judge had to ask them to be quiet. Randy, man, he even looked at me and they yelled at him and threatened to have me removed from the courtroom. So I have about a 45-second communication with Randy. Just on the outside, it looks like we're just looking at each other. On the inside, so much communication went down. And I could feel him uplifting. Everyone could see him uplifting, which is why the sheriffs came in immediately. One came to me while he got yelled at by the others. And the guy says, excuse me, are you, do you have business here? I was like, yeah, I'm looking for Forrest Wallace. Oh, he's not here yet. He's not here yet? Okay. And he goes, do you want to sit down? And I said, sure. I go, anywhere? He goes, yeah. So I sit down in the DA's bench, the Attorney General's bench. And I'm just sitting there and I'm watching Randy. And a DA comes up to me and says, you can't sit here. This is just for Attorney General. I was like, okay, no problem. So I slip behind in the next pew. Randall and I are still communicating. And it was direct line of sight. No words, no mouthing of words, no nothing. Just looking and smiling. And, of course, communicating. And so this little sheriff comes back. And he goes, are you a victim? And I really had to hold my tongue because I was like, should I fuck with him? Should I go there? And I didn't. I just said, no, I'm not a victim at all. And he just said, oh, well, you can't sit here. It's just victims. I said, honey, I asked you, when you said to sit down, I said, anywhere? You said, yes. I said, just tell me where, and, I'll comply with your construction on this. And so then they finally moved me. And this is all important because what happened at that moment was 2 more sheriffs came in with military cuts and everything else. And so now Randy has 3 over by him, and there's 1 sitting down next to the judges. It's connected to the judge's bench.
Basically, it's the witness stand.
Yeah, basically. He's sitting in the witness stand. And the DEAs at that point are all looking. You could tell everyone had been warned because they kept staring.
Everybody.
Hardcore.
Arrogantly too at this point in time.
Yeah, at this point in time it was arrogantly, but I didn't care about anyone else.
Right.
I noticed that they were watching, but it was mainly Randy that I cared about and who needed the energy to be able to move forward and a recharge. He needed a recharge.
Because Tuesday he was in handcuffs and then the waist
He was in
chain
full shackles.
and ankles.
Top to bottom.
Yeah.
He had his legs were shackled, his hands were shackled, and it runs through a belt at the waist.
Yep.
With a chain that connects everything. And he was humiliated, and he and I communicated in our way, and he understood that none of that really mattered, especially to me. What mattered was that he put on a very strong face and a strong aura. And so I assisted in boosting that with Val and Alex, Alex is an incredible amplifier. And Val's incredible at healing, but also at other things. Both of them are. So we're doing all of this, and next thing we know, there's, like I said, more sheriffs brought in. You had another U.S. Marshal brought in, and then we did our thing. The Forrest Wallace, I love him. He didn't do anything I asked him to. He went and talked to the DOJ. Then he went to talk to Randall, and then he went back to the DOJ, and then came back. And meantime,
Judge Davis, his whole demeanor changed.
well, that was after that.
Okay.
Because I told Mr. Wallace, Forrest Wallace, about the military operation, about the deep cover operations on the space side as well, to go in and make visible the shadow operations within the government, quote unquote, that were there, with Parker Still and all of this. So I knew water cooler is one of the most important tactics that we have in law. And so when he went back to the back room, you can tell the moment that he actually spilled the beans, because all of a sudden arrogant faces aren't so arrogant. And General Davis came out and he was beet red. He was upset at this point, and he was sweating. And because I had told Wallace that DOJ was dirty, FBI was dirty, and that there was proof sitting right in these folders, which I now had in my hands. And that's when all these sheriffs came in. We ended up with an additional, we had over a dozen armed law enforcement that were brought into that room. And there was 6 of us. By that time, there was 6 of us in the room, and then five or 6 inmates. They had taken most of the inmates down, and almost everyone had left the courtroom other than the 3 of us and 3 other people
It was
who
12,
were communicating with the inmate sitting next to Randy.
it was 12:50 by this point in time.
Yeah, at 12:50. So all of this went down, and we had a Mexican standoff. I had to keep going in and out of the courtroom because I was receiving messages and from intel guys. They had sent over copies of the affidavits, which weren't available in the clerk's record. They had sent them over to Bill, American Kabuki, Terra Incognito, whichever name they use. And Bill sent them to me immediately, just said a mysterious person sent this over to me, and I assume that they're for you since they say Randall Keith Bean. And I had put out the call the night before saying, get me hard evidence on bogus warrants to all the intel guys. So everyone was actually coordinated cooperation here. DOJ, U.S. Marshals are really sweating it, especially now in this current moment as we're doing this video. DOJ and U.S. Marshals and all those guys know they really should have been more careful in their choice that they were implementing. So Randy, there was a huge energetic Mexican standoff. You could see it. You could feel it. I would literally get up and leave the courtroom and come back in multiple times. And instead of passing in the front, a few times I passed to the front because I needed to get to the phone call. But every other time, there's probably 10, 11 times that I would go in the back to go past them because they put these guys, all these U.S. Marshals, 3 behind me, and then 1 in the middle and one on the other side, plus the 2 that were in the box. We just passed right by him close enough to where I could pat them on the shoulder and said, hey guys, what's up? And smiled and kept going. So this intimidation thing, it didn't work the way they wanted it to. And I still got to communicate with Randy. It got to the point where they were yelling at him going, don't, stop looking at her. We're going to throw her out. And I almost just went like this and to close my eyes, just to fuck with him. But I'm communicating with Randy. Randy's communicating with me. And they know it. They don't know how.
And they're pissed off.
But they know it, and they were pissed off. But they couldn't throw me out. And they couldn't take Randall out. He's, after this particular day, Randall, the very next morning, was put into an open pod, has now email and phone. Of course, they restrict some of the hours that you can do, but he was in 24-hour lockdown. They Guantanamo them. They didn't allow him to have showers for days on end. I don't know how much food, but I can tell you it looked like he had lost, for me, it looked like he had lost 35 pounds since he'd been taken in on the 11th. Very little, they were trying, basically he had sensory deprivation, totally discombobulated as far as, during the days, and in court, they have to at least make him look somewhat presentable. Otherwise, questions will be asked. But knowing Randy and his personal regime, or retinue that he does, you could tell he was off his game and not the Randall that you normally see and work with. So that really was kind of the deal. They made a lot of statements, intimidation moves, and none of it worked. They just got madder and madder as we all went through. And then some really cool things happened later that night with some of the bigger aspects that I think your UFO communities and hard-fought researchers would really enjoy. And Knoxville just went up in a panic. And there was stuff that happened at the airport the next day, but we'll go ahead and finish with Tuesday. So what do you guys have?
The motorhome.
Oh, the motorhome. So at this point, towards the end of the hearing schedule, because the judge said he had to leave at 1 for whatever. He had a meeting between 1 and 2, and he just have to end court early, for that day. And so what I told Randall, or what I told the attorney to tell Randall, is, look, it's up to him whether he wants to go to South Carolina. It obviously was his setup. That was a case he had left there as sort of an out, in the event. And so they wouldn't even scrub it. It didn't matter to them that they had no warrant to arrest Randall. They weren't going to let him off on that, what they called it. He called it a glitch. He said, that's just a glitch. And they'll say, well, we got him here now, and there's proof that, there's a warrant. I was like, it's a bogus warrant. He goes, no, they just want to hear whether he's identified as Randall Keith Bean. And I was like, okay, so there's no criminal procedure and process. Okay. Laws are just guidelines, or not really. Laws are just sort of, paper to use for wiping your ass or something like that. It just did not make sense. It was ridiculous. I've never seen such an insane show presented as a courtroom. No law whatsoever. And the judge was very stressed out compared to what Val and Alex had experienced the day before. It was a natural funny. He was sweating. He was pushing the humor to where everyone was kind of like, even the DAs, the generals were sitting there looking at each other like, what is going on here? And so everyone was very uncomfortable. So I said, Randy, if he wants to get out of here. He said he did not want to be in Knoxville. He didn't feel safe in Knoxville with everything that had been going down. I said, then get out. I told the attorney, tell him, get out. And by this time we had paid the attorney because apparently he had gotten some water cooler that he was going to get stiffed, which wasn't the case. We were sitting at court before they even started with his cash. And so I said, look, now will you do your job? Here's the cash. Now finish. And he was like, well, it's, I don't know you guys. I don't know. And I said, yeah, I know. And I almost said, but you Googled me, but I didn't. We were trying to be as nice and as supportive as we can because he was shooken up by everything he was seeing. With the U.S. Marshals, the number of U.S. Marshals they brought in, plus the things they were telling him that just didn't match, the fact that they wouldn't even let go of the bogus warrant and let him out. He said this is the strangest case he's ever had. And I said, okay, so Randall says he'll do the waiver, so get him the waiver, and I want you to make sure it's South Carolina on there and bring it to me so I can verify, which he finally did. He started to listen towards the end because of what he was seeing and things that they were saying behind the doors and all the marshals that were bringing in. So he was very, very on top of it at that point. I said, also, find out where the coach is. He goes, the coach. And I said, they took the coach. They seized the coach when they arrested Randy. He goes, what does a coach have to do with him being a fugitive from justice? I said, it does, see? And he goes, oh my God. He goes, this is strange. So he goes, okay, I'll ask about the coach. I give him all the identifiers. He comes back and he goes, they don't know about any coach. They say there's no coach. And I said, okay. He goes, the best we can do is try to search for it, which we later did some research, and Val talked to the dispatcher for the sheriff's office. And she says, well, basically, well, I'll let her go into that. It's totally different than what happened in their system. It showed that he looked like he had surrendered, and he came to their building, their headquarters, and had surrendered to them, is what they had in their system. And there was no mention of a vehicle being seized at all. So the vehicle is everyone's claiming there was no vehicle.
But yeah, we got the MSO and I was sitting in.
Yeah. So that's it. Randy, at this point, when I went back to speak with Parker, or excuse me, not Parker. I got Parker on the brain because he calls all the time every day. It was Wallace. I went down to, we had already paid him, so that was an issue, but I went down to go get the research that he had done for me, so he had the affidavits, and he was just like, I'm so sorry. He goes, this is the weirdest case. He goes, they don't want him down there. They don't want him in Knoxville anymore. I said, I know. And I said, and they can't have him in Colorado, so just, watch. He goes, I'm so sorry. He goes, I've been trying to find his coach for you. I believe there was a coach. After what I saw today, he goes, I believe there was a coach. So I've been calling all the tow yards. I said, don't worry about it. It's got GPS. We can locate the thing by GPS. Not a problem. And he goes, oh, yes. And so he's like, if this on the 1st, which is when the court said it, if South Carolina doesn't pick Randy up by the 1st, then he goes, Randy has a good chance of just getting out. No shit, right? But South Carolina supposedly was Forrest Wallace had called South Carolina repeatedly, and they said, yes, we're picking him up. Yes, we're coming to get him and all this. And Knoxville does not want him in there. That's what the attorney generals were telling, Forrest. And so he's like, I doubt he'll be in there, for long. Like, it'll be in a couple of days that they pick him up. Well, apparently, from the last time we talked to him, which was 2 days ago, he's still there. They haven't come to pick him up. So that's where things are for right now on that. And then Randy's called us a couple of times as we were moving around, because I told Val and Alex, right now he's safe. He's not going to disappear. He's not going to die or have any accidents, because everyone made this so visible. And I thank you, BZ. I thank you, Brian. I thank you, Lisa and Danny and Roger Indigo and everyone else who works so hard to make this visible, because that's the only way in these kinds of cases to keep them alive. And everyone on the intelligence side in my contacts list is just in awe that Randy's still alive and that everything was handled so great. And this is what coordinated cooperation is about. Okay. Now military has an example, and global militaries and global leaders have examples of what can happen when there's unity amongst everyone. Okay. Because this was only an example of unity amongst some on this planet. Imagine when you put the whole universe together. So that's where we are on that. The next morning, my plane got delayed.
We had to do the night.
Oh, no, you wanted to hear about what happened that night when certain friends lit up the sky?
And the hail.
And the hail. I'm going to
wait, before you get to that point, before you get to that point, just for sake of clarification, where does Randy's case stand officially? Like, how was it left that day when it seems like there was no
They changed everything. Paul McDonald put a screenshot into the original room today, that big Skype room. It's totally unreadable. I've never seen a screen like that for federal cases. We don't know where it is. At this point, they just want to get him out. They don't know what to do. So Brian, I would say look at the screenshot, because I personally have never seen a screenshot like that.
Okay.
Well, when we left the courtroom at that point, it was extradition to South Carolina, to Jasper County. True?
Yeah, to Jasper County, South Carolina, and that South Carolina had till August 1st to pick him up.
Got it. Okay. All right. So you go into the what happened that night?
So we were on the balcony of Randy's condo, and well, first it was just Heather and I. Alex was in the inside, and the sky was blue, and it was sunny. It was hot, and all of a sudden, a dark cloud appeared over Randy's condo, only over Randy's condo, and it began to hail garbanzo bean sized hail pellets for about 3, 4, 5 minutes, straight down. The only place that was receiving this was at Randy's condo, which was a pretty large.
It was sunny and clear skies
everywhere else.
Sky.
So we received a small hail shower, and then that was probably 5, 6 o'clock. We had just been chatting. I think, yeah, there you go, baby. So then later on, it got dark, and we were just kind of decompressing from the day. We had nothing to drink, nothing to smoke, anything. We were actually, I think, all just trying to stay hydrated. And chatting. We were in a great space. We were looking at how beautiful the day was and how much, great work we did and everybody did and how we felt everybody's presence. And I looked up into the south, and there were two objects in the sky that really reminded me of jellyfish. They were nothing like you see on TV or in the movies where things are moving fast and lights are real sharp angles and lights spinning. It was a floating thing that these two objects were just dancing in the sky, beautifully floating. They would float up and they would kind of float together. They came towards us. They kind of backed off a little bit. And the whole time, the lights were going at the bottom. I've only seen a craft one other time in my life, and that was, I don't know, almost 20 years ago. This was beautiful. This was a dance that they did, these two objects did together to
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Jellyfish costume?
Oh,
I was just gonna go smoke. I'll be right back.
So anyway, so yes, we saw, and it lasted, I don't know what, 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
It was fantastic, and to us, it looked like complete galactic approval for everything, to let us know they were there, in that kind of sense. So Heather has left the room to go smoke. So okay, yeah, okay. If you guys, okay. So anyway, so that takes us through the Tuesday night, and we decided it was very clear to all of us to get out of Knoxville and that we could be of more service, and there was time. Heather said it was time to go to DC, and so she said Alex and I were to travel by land, and she was to travel by air. She caught a flight. And it was late. She was delayed, I think, 2 or 3 hours getting out of Knoxville. And that's a whole other story because she had visitors from the marshals, and
we'll let her
tell that. But Alex and I just got packed up from Randy's place, and we just headed here. And I tell you what, it went like we rode on light easily. So
yeah,
that's where we're at, which takes us to Wednesday morning. I can't believe it's just Saturday.
So at this moment, I think we should take a break since Heather stepped out and she can tell what happened with the airport and stuff. Is that cool?
Lisa, are you able to dub out a short break when we publish?
I just closed the recording.
Okay, sweet.
Back?
I'm here.
Okay. All right, we're back online. So where we left off before that quick break was leaving Knoxville and heading to DC. So do you want to, Heather, maybe just give a little bit of backstory of why the move of location?
Well, I was already headed to DC from Houston. And this is what is so important for everyone to at least be open to hearing and receiving so that they can choose how to do as they feel, okay? I have always used my body to be able to position myself where people think that they aren't seen. Whether it was in Morocco, when we were in Morocco, it was Dakhla, right? With the Mauritania and Alexandria's library. And they thought that it wasn't known and wasn't seen, but I have my own person, my own team member that have worked with for years, which you also know and have worked with. And so intel comes in from all different sorts. And then, of course, that's cross-referenced with other intel sources that I've had established for years. And so by using my body and placing myself into places where they think they aren't seen and that nobody knows their operations, it makes them very nervous. And you can actually see things made visible. That's what Knoxville was about, because I had no intention of going to Knoxville. I was going from Houston to DC to deal with the TDAs and making sure nobody else was intimidated by threat of force or force. And they all know at the top levels that the title, ownership, and authority is all in each one's hands. They know what the public trust and those maneuvers to close it and return everything to each one respectively was about and what was done. But it was a matter of applying, which is why it's so great. Everyone has been going in and doing all this, because basically you have your physical presence, which you are using an e-based system to make your presence known. It is so effective and so powerful because it's so unified. No matter how many groups, compartmentalized groups it looks like, everyone's putting the same pressure points on. So Harvey Dent, even other groups who even are, putting down the attempts and the processes and the successes, because that was the biggest thing. There were so many successes there for the first 7 days that it was irrefutable that those accounts existed, number one. Number two, that they were yours, because you were able to make things work. They had to manually go in. And as we discussed, Brian, in prep for this call, there was, 1 million transfers that were done. And then by the 17th, when I arrived, there was 10 million. Now there's tens of millions that have gone through, and they manually are having to do all this. So I was already headed to DC. I made a stop up in Knoxville because I knew my presence there was going to affect, and we got to see the visible effect of that cause and effect. And nobody in that courtroom is the same. DOJ is even more upset, and actually you got to see this week what the results were on a national scale with DOJ and the Attorney General with President Trump. So what happened was I went to go get on a plane, and while I was in the international section of the airport, I'd already gone through security. Sheriffs came in with other unidentified guys that had SWAT gear on, and they just sort of swam around me, and no big deal because I'm in international zone at that point. They can't do anything. They have no jurisdiction, no nothing. But if I had stepped outside the smoke and had to go through security again, yeah, that'd be a whole different story. So Val and Alex were already on their way because my plane got delayed. The flight from DC that I was supposed to then take back to DC never showed. And it was the only one out of DC that didn't show because there were 2 or 3 others and they all made it. So another plane was arranged and made it to DC. And those guys just buggered off. They stood there and, did their intimidation thing and nothing worked. So then got to DC, met up with Val and Alex later that night. We rested for a bit and then went right into things on Monday. No, excuse me. What day is it? Thursday.
Yeah, it's Saturday.
Thursday, and went straight to the White House. And actually what we were doing was we were on our way. We would have ended up on the other side of the White House and instead felt the pull. And as we approached, because it goes U.S. Treasury there on the corner of 15th and Pennsylvania, 1600 Pennsylvania. It goes U.S. Treasury, and then it goes the White House, and then it goes the Eisenhower Building of Business or executive offices, something like that. That's your street. That's what comprises your street. On the other side is Bank of America, which Bank of America is the only bank I bank with at this particular time, and all their systems crashed nationwide. Okay, Bank of America is the one that holds my Fed contract. So somebody had brought up about if you have banks with the names America, Citizen, etc., those are holding the contracts. That's who you should be using. Well, I gave you guys years ago in the E bonds and the D bonds my back office with my Treasury Direct number as well as my back office. So everyone's actually got my data. But Bank of America is one that holds my Fed contract for my account. And they would be sort of the processing. But that's neither here nor there at this point, because when we went to turned on the block, felt the pull to go that way. We went that way, and we ended up right in front of the Treasury. And all of a sudden, Secret Service swarmed the streets. They started to, you know, be very firm with the tourists, going, get off the street, back down the street. And they made everyone get off on the sidewalk that goes right by the White House, that's, you know, connected to the White House. They made them all get off that and go over across the street. So they pushed the perimeter of security out, and they were putting up police do not cross tape. I mean, literally, we turned on the corner, and then all of a sudden, Secret Service swarmed the street, and we're pushing tourists out. And at the same time, as we walked down on the side of Lafayette Park, of the street in front of the White House, they were emptying tourists out of the White House who were on the White House tour. They were shuffling them outside as fast as they could, but also not too fast so that they wouldn't start asking questions. And so we just sat there and we waited, because that was also the anniversary date of the purported moon landing. And you also had Trump doing, you know, supposedly security meetings and whatnot. And, you know, that basically took him, an hour and a half, 2 hours to get, at least. And they were having choppers flying all around, numerous choppers, and you had numerous unmarked vehicles coming into the White House as tourists were being pushed out and dropping people off and then coming back out. You have new police cars. The Secret Service brought out their shotguns and their automatic rifles. And everyone was asking, what's going on? What's going on? You had guys in full-on naval regalia coming down the street as fast as they could to go to, you know, the gates. And they were very perplexed. And people who are on the inside of DC were walking by going, oh my God, I've never seen this before. What is going on? And they were talking amongst themselves as they were passing us by. So there was some unscheduled activity going on that Secret Service was doing. And I got to say, these guys are impressive. I'm enamored with how impressive they are. It gave us goosebumps. And everything was going fine. Meanwhile, I'm on the phone unofficially and indirectly with people that are in the White House. And I was just told, you know, let them do their thing. Let them, you know, they were bringing media in, everything else. And we just said, okay, let's hang out. Let's, you know, do this. And I had already told the intel guys beforehand, the day before, we're going to be at the White House and let's start this, because everyone's going to have unfettered access to their unfettered access and facilitation to their Treasury direct accounts. That's the only choice there is. And they already knew this from years ago, but now's the time for implementation. There is no more blocking, reversing. It's your guys' accounts. It's everyone's accounts on this planet. And not just the ones in the US. I'm talking about regardless where your location is, you get access to your Treasury direct accounts in all international equivalents. So every value that you have out there, which is spread across the world. And we went back and forth with these communications. We went and ate stuff, and we had Secret Service coming in and out of, because we went a ways away from the White House to go and eat. And they usually do the perimeter of the block around it. But we were down further, about, a block and a half, 2 blocks, something like that. And Secret Service kept coming in and out of the little dive of a restaurant that we were in. And that was sort of how it worked for a few hours. And then I got a phone call saying, okay, you know, the top of the top says, you're good to go, you've won. And we get the whole block. And I just said, okay, well, when you say we won, you realize it's everyone wins. And they said, yes, but, you know, because they've been watching this for 17 years, you know, of all this work. I said, it's got to be it's very important that everyone understands, including the ones that now feel that they've lost, that they understand that everyone wins, including them. And that we all did this. Because I can tell you, the coordination that everyone did by touching their accounts and paying their bills, going in and working at the purchasing, going in and figuring out how people outside the US can actually access their accounts and value. All of this was a coordinated effort that now allows for military space programs, national, international, to all come together with the people to make this happen. And that's the call that I received. Of course, it was unofficial and indirect. The point is we now move to official and direct. So everyone's won. It's just, they said, give us 3 days so that we can get everything in line. And, you know, of course, yeah. Did you have a question?
Are you able to share who, sorry for interrupting, are you able to share who it was that made that call, or what position they hold? And then were you actually going to DC to meet anyone, or you just knew that you needed to be there and you were there to show your presence?
No, not just presence. I knew that there would be meetings. I knew that this was the end of the old and the beginning of the new. So I communicated with Jonathan D. Betts, who's the trader for the White House, okay? And then, of course, there's Carl Langenstein, and he's grown up with all the families. These are the two guys that were my mentors for many years in bank, trade, and finance. These two basically make people shake when they walk into a bank. These are the guys that work with intelligence agencies, whether it be the boys, CIA, or whether it be MI6, MI5, Mossad, Chinese intelligence. Carl Langenstein's actually the director of finance for CNO, which is the state-owned, Chinese state-owned corporation. Switzerland, obviously, both of them. But Carl grew up in Switzerland. He's Swiss. And each of them have their own histories. So this is the communication. And I love Jonathan. Jonathan, I wrote him that day saying, I'm at the White House, see you soon. And he was like, he goes, I would really enjoy that. He goes, bon chance. I was like, you know, done. No chance about it. And he just wrote back, evil laugh. I was like, you do evil so good. And I said, love you. And then later, like yesterday, I wrote him saying, okay, have you picked a restaurant? Because I told him the day before at the White House, dinner and drinks were on me. And obviously, at this point, there was no communication yesterday because everyone was so shocked about what happened at the White House on Thursday. And I had gotten a call later that night on Thursday saying, you know, 4 people want to have meetings right now. And I said, okay. And then they said, and there's another one. And it's the daughter of a very important man. And you know who that is. And I said, yes, that's fine. I want things to move from unofficial and indirect to official and direct, because that's where everyone's going into. It's original depository with original depository. And then we can make it as fun as we all want. Who cares? At that point, use your imagination. But there has to be direct and transparent and coordinated, you know, doings at this point. And that's what we've been overcoming. It was important for the Federal Reserve, BIS, and all the families that were behind this to feel what it feels like, the power of those that traditionally have been considered cattle, to feel their power and their determination. They know you aren't going to stop. They know none of us are going to stop, not this time. And that was really, you know, that was the goal, because they don't want this to go on anymore either. But it was going to continue to go on unless there was coordinated cooperation and it was factualized. I use specific words in original, factualized, because they are words that they recognize, so that they could recognize it. So anyways, those meetings, I said, that's fine. And they said, just give us 3 days because we need to go in and that you've won, period. You've won. Y'all get the vaults, you get the house, you get all this stuff. So this is going to be a matter of coordination at this point, right? Because all of us did this, even the ones that are currently in the White House, working things out. You know, yesterday you got to see, number one, the whole deal with DOJ, right? The Attorney General, and, you know, President Trump made something very visible and toned it out. And the Attorney General has since said, okay, we're going to stay. I believe we can still do our duties, even though there's now a problem between Trump and ourselves. And then you have, and believe me, that is connected to everything that just happened with Randall and the dirtiness that's inside DOJ and FBI and all that. And then, of course, you had Spicer who resigned. As he put it, what was it? Too many chefs in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Because things are now going to change. This is everyone's deal. And I will tell you this, Trump's cabinet, everyone talks about Trump and who he's got in there. There are very specific strategic choices that were made in order to put spotlights on, sort of like Obama doing the Qatar deal an hour before he left or something like that. And Trump took over, was so that there was spotlights out that even a blind man could see. That's how obvious they are. Because everything that was practiced behind the veil for all these decades, Obama put out in front of everyone via executive order, but also protected everyone by putting it out via executive order. Okay, it's sort of like a president making very serious decisions for a company without having the board of directors sign off on it or give authority for it. So everyone's been more protected than So like Trump canceling tips and all of that program was basically taking any public agency and having them service corporate and foreign corporate interests, which is your pipeline issue, right? With the tribes and everything else. Those guys were there to serve corporate interests, foreign corporate interests at that as well. Right now you have a very nice working effort where those on the inside, whether it's DOJ, FBI, CIA, the White House, and then international, is that they're now coming in, they're shutting down different aspects. And what I would like to do is, we can do an update later, but I would like to give them time to finish the setup that they're doing so that this week there is the official. So yesterday, for instance, I talked to Langenstein. I just said, okay, what do they need? And basically what we needed was to have things go from unofficial and indirect to official and direct, so that real announcements can be made. So I said, fine, I'll call. And Alex was actually the one who said, this is what I feel. Because we usually do a work, we meet in the morning. We just say, okay, what have you got here? What are our feelings on assessing? And these guys are incredible to work with. I've worked with a lot of people, and every doing that I do, there's a specific alchemical formula of beingness to get that doing done. So I'm not attached to any beings, but at the same time, I'm very aware that there are certain combinations in order to get something done. And we've never worked together before, at least as Alex puts it, in these meat suits. But it was obvious after Knoxville what to do. So when we went in, it was just amplification of everything. And Alex said, we need to call the White House. We need to at least tone this out, have them tone it back. Because what happened was Secret Service, when I went up, I had instruction basically to go and just give my name and my passport. And Secret Service looked very confused, and they refused to actually call in my name. All they would give them is my birthday. They would just say 7/30/72. And he refused repeatedly, because I told him, just give him my name.
Well, we actually walked up to it was the press gate, just to clarify.
Right. Yeah, to the press gate. And I said, just tell them my name. Here's my passport, and give them my name. And he refused to do that. And he said, I'm sorry, our systems don't recognize you. And so when we went in, we discussed the next morning. It was okay, fine, put it in the systems. And meanwhile, I talked to Langenstein, because the daughters was trying to figure out, okay, what do we do to take this from unofficial and indirect to official and direct? And that's what it was. So I called them, gave them my name, and they said, okay, well, obviously just the name on a White House line, because I had friends whose kids worked for the White House, and so we talked to them on their White House phones with all our plans to get together and work together, and they, got fired. And so being on a White House line, we understand there's a lot listening. And so then the lady said, okay, well, you need to email. I said, okay, no problem. Well, at first I said, are you sure? Because just give my name. And they refused. So I said, okay. So I did the email, sent that over. Now it's official and in the line. That was sent over behind the scenes so that she knows. And now that was yesterday morning. And then right after, Spicer announced that he's resigned. They're cleaning, they're working around the clock. They are raw. So it's really important to focus, if for all who feel to do, is to focus on helping them recharge, because they are fully committed to making all this happen. It's a done deal as far as everyone getting their unfettered access and facilitation to their accounts. Period. That's a done deal. So now it's just announcements and the actual, forms of application at this point. And I want it done as fast as possible. People keep asking me about timelines, and I'm like, well, my birthday's on July 30th, right? This is my birthday present to myself, is that everyone on the planet has unfettered access and facilitation to their accounts. And then I get to see the joy that they feel and that they, exhibit. That's my birthday gift. So that's about as much of a timeline as I'm going to give you, and it could be anytime sooner than that, because it doesn't take much for them. It basically is them telling their manual departments, hands off. But I can also tell you that as far as the teams I work with universally, we've already taken other steps as well, where their access to even affect it manually is being removed. And that's what has been happening with Bank of America shutting down, not being able to do their things, is this recalibration. And that very shortly, depending on if they go past an unacceptable time is for implementation, is that they just won't have access to manually block you or reverse you or any of that. And they know that, which is another significant point. Was we all came together, but it wasn't just all of us. It was also what people have called the universal or galactic or cosmic, because all these systems reside in the original system. And it's very easy to do, which they are now seeing it was, because they're experiencing the fact that, okay, they acted bad, and so now they're not going to have access. And it's already, their systems are already showing them that in a very easy, gentle way, but it's going to be complete here in a bit. So I would ask that everyone just sort of relax for the next few days and really help recharge, or not the next few days, but over this weekend, help those in the White House and involved with the White House, and then also involved with Federal Reserve, U.S. Treasury, and the families behind all this, is to really help them recharge so that they can get clarity. It's not the top levels that we have that have an issue. They already know and they're all for it. It's the levels below them that were trying to be top level, that had their own agendas, that are having the hardest time with it. So you have Parker Still, and all of that. And right now, Parker Still and DOJ fell off the hill. I mean, that's the only way to describe it. And Parker has been calling nonstop over these last few days from various numbers. And I'll give you guys what I see for the little time that I took to go and view this, was what I see the position that he's in. And so as soon as I saw all that, I immediately went in to go and protect him, make him as visible. Because with Randy, the best thing I could do for Randy was get the spotlight off of him with Parker. I'm speaking now to Parker. Because Parker he was doing a job. He was hired for a job, he did it. And then all of a sudden it didn't work. And now it's personal for him. So to get him to focus on me and not on Randall, that means Randall still lives and he does get beaten every day. And now Parker's, got it hot as far as trying to catch, my tail, because he doesn't have an MSO. He may have the coach hidden, but he doesn't have an MSO. And now he's got too much heat and too much spotlight on him, which affects all his operations. And he's actually made visible all his shadow operations within DOJ, FBI, as well as military. And all his military guys are spread out throughout all these different agencies, including federal housing here in DC and everything else. So that's give you a little bit of idea of what's going down. We are going to, as I know details, I will put details out, but I also want to coordinate with everyone on this, because it is everyone that did this. And it's not a matter of here's what goes down, now figure out how you're going to participate in it. And Lisa, Shannon, and I toned this out for these guys so that they could see that they were recognized, but also start doing self-recognition, which Val and Alex and I went through. That's what's happening right now. And the White House is doing great. Everyone's doing great. The top levels are doing great as far as getting this done, so that everyone has their stuff to use, how they feel to. It's yours. We worked very hard on the title and authority and ownership. And I'm never doing it again. nobody's going to do it again. So that's where we are, guys.
I have a clarifying question.
Heather? Oh, go ahead, BZ.
I just had a couple of clarifying questions for you. One, you mentioned with what went down Thursday. So Thursday was the day that you were by the White House. Was it not only, were you referring what went down, in quotes, to what you and Alex and Valerie did, or are you also referring to things that happened within the White House? Did you ever go in the White House? Could you just be more clarifying on that?
No, I never went into the White House. Communications were done unofficially on the phone while we were at the White House. Yes, certain things happened while we were there with Secret Service, because there was also that you don't know what the intentions are kind of a deal. So let's figure this out. And then certain calls went in from, you know, our guys saying, no, this is calm. This is a done deal. So everything relaxed after that. Tape got taken down. People were allowed back to the inner perimeter. But still, you have your, you know, you can't even get into the grounds of the White House normally. So everything sort of relaxed at that point. And there was confirmations that, hey, this is totally a calm effort here. Let's just move this forward. And then I got the calls later. So we never actually had to even go into the White House, but everything was communicated from those who were in the White House to the outside. And now we're moving things from unofficial and indirect to official and indirect. But I want everyone to understand, to know, yes, we had an effect by being present there, but this was because everyone was working hard as well as to find the information and all the stuff that, you know, Bob and Brian and BZ and Lisa and Danny, even Danny with her warnings to everyone, which was great, because if you don't know what you're doing, especially in the environment that we're coming out of now, that's why I had to get to DC, because I didn't want anyone to get hurt. And although I know the title and authority and ownership are perfect, okay, and that I know they know that it's perfect, it's people like Parker Still and certain families that are very upset, you know, of what's going on, like the Italian families, and just the crap that's gone on. And one of our guys got poisoned, and then now he's better and everything else. But, you know, the Italians were upset because another person, Patrizia Pace, they had taken her 500 and were cut a deal with the Prime Minister of Italy and BIS. And now they're upset because they realize they've lost everything. They can't use her original issue. So there's also that tool where people can do original issues, and we'll go over all that later. But right now, we're going to simplify this to, you know, who knows? There's possibly with the Essence cards where you just have a card that's connected to every account you have on the planet.
So just to clarify, so because I can feel everybody out there who hasn't heard this yet, but can kind of hear it. Just to clarify, so right now, what I felt you say was that things from an unofficial level have flipped the switches, that they're moving to official. So official as in an announcement, the mouthpieces of the paid press and all that will come through with this, or
yes,
they'll.
Not just an announcement. The point is about implementation, right?
Right.
Because announcements only go so far. This is about implementation, where you can actually use this without, you know, so it's unfettered access and facilitation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I'm focused on. Announcements, anyone can make them. Yes, there is some. Let's put it this way: if I go out and I announce, guys, unfettered access, go for it. You know, with my history of performance and everything else, there's more likelihood that people are going to understand that. But when you put myself and others from the White House or U.S. Treasury or whatever together, there's a much more impact there, and then there's no doubts, right? And there's more of a cohesive, coordinated cooperation there, as far as going in and you guys knowing that you aren't going to be messed with.
Yes. So just to follow up on that, so it seems like that's all happening behind the scenes right now, and we will get an obvious. It'll be obvious, unmistakable to everybody. And I also heard you, also felt you say that right now in these moments in between, that if people feel moved to in a coordinated cooperation effort to hold energy, to open energy to those who are finally getting off the dime and doing all this, and the families and those who feel that they've lost or whatever it is, we'll say those, okay, and a big ball there, that if we could hold energy for them, send them our appreciation for the fact that they're taking these steps and that there will be unmistakable movement of unfettered access in the next couple days. Would that be helpful?
Oh, that's more than I mean, yes. They just need to know that there is support. They've waited for the coordination by the people so that they could come out and they could do this stuff. You see what the global theater is like. You see what the global actions and whatnot have been for the last year. So yeah, send them recharge. Don't hold energy. Holding energy means they don't get it. Holding space for them to be able to receive energy, yeah, that's completely different. So sending them energy for recharging themselves, because they're working around the clock right now. Also sending them energy for clarity, focusing on clarity so that they can get things done as fast as possible. That would be tremendous help. So yes, I'm not saying anyone has to stop doing what they're doing. I'm just saying for those that feel to do it, it will hyper accelerate everything beyond the speed of heart. And love them. Oh, quick. Yeah, we were talking about what to do with those that are, let's say, resisting or whatnot. And I described it as, sort of like an electrical circuit that runs through the house. What happens when you send too much power through the circuits? Anything that's, plugged in, basically, it depends on the type of device and the components in the device, but most of the time it fries. Sometimes it only bits fry and you can go in and get it fixed, that kind of a thing. Well, it's the same thing with love. Send them love, just unlimited love. It is a measurable frequency, or it was. Now it's gone and transcended past what love has ever been known as or experienced as, because you can never define love. But send them that love. And those that just don't want to be here or transition in a very physical way, their body just dissolves. Okay, they check out, essentially. Those that do want to, and if there has been any injury because they hold on and that is too much of a charge for them, they have all the assistance possible to come in and help them and assist them. And that's where we're at. So I would ask anyone who feels to, please focus energy to recharge them, as well as energy for clarity, so that it can be done as fast as possible.
A big question.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Brett. About the international access and how others in countries outside of the U.S. and Canada would access their accounts.
Okay.
Or is that going to be announced with the quote-unquote official announcement?
Yeah, you hopped on late. I did address this, that regardless of where anyone's location is, everyone on this planet will have access to their respective accounts. Okay? As far as there's Essence cards, which have already been prepared for complete release, but there's also, I want to meet with those at the White House because there's another little issue that needs to be handled with Putin. But what I wanted to do was to say, okay, here's all the tools and here's all the data. Now, what is everyone's feelings for a very quick implementation that's coordinated, in complete coordinated cooperation. So that, because, there's no more superiors, there's no more top, everyone is top, if you want to see it that way. Everyone's top. You know,
Everyone's original.
everyone's original. So everyone moves forward together and very transparent. So as far as the practical application, Bob, it could be as simple as a card which is connected to every single account and operates off your own unique energetic signature, which everyone possesses their own unique energetic signature. It's energetic signature, security, which the banks used to work off of security, biometric security. So it's just it's the most advanced form of security. There's other ways too. So I would really like to first get in there, speak with them. They're doing a lot of moving around right now, a lot of changes with the people that are actually involved in this. You've already seen one leave, another one decided to stay, but who knows if they stay? I don't know. I'm letting them do this because they know the house the best. They know their operations and they already know who's dirty and who's not. It's just nobody's really done anything in a way where it was a coordinated cooperation on such a universal scale. And it's not just me, I'm talking all of us. We all did this, including them. Parker Steele, for me, hero in my book, because he made it look like such a mess and so sloppy, but he left the trail so that we could find all his other buddies in there and make sure that they wouldn't harm anyone else. Do you get that? Do you understand what's going on there on that?
I do.
Okay. So as far as application, it doesn't matter where anyone is. They will have complete unfettered access and facilitation to their accounts. We'll work out the logistics here. That's what this week is for. Okay.
Perfect.
Anything else?
Yeah, Heather, is your plan, along with Alex and Valerie, are you guys committed to staying in DC until this is all wrapped up and finished?
Yes. I'll speak for me, and then I'll let Val and Alex speak for them. Every storyline of separation has been prepared to be resolved. Okay. So you guys know Yusef, and his part has always been, he's worked for 17 years on all this stuff, was to heal and deal with healing the separation amongst the Arab storylines, which are all the embassies are here in DC. I myself will be having a home base here in DC for as long as required, so that we can get all this done beyond just everyone having their access to their TDA accounts or their international equivalents. So I will be in DC until my presence is no longer required and I can go create elsewhere. Val, Alex, we're hoping to work together. I'm hoping to work together. So I'm putting this out now so that pressure can be put on Val and Alex to decide to stay here.
Well, we're in the agreement. Yes, we're here to see this through. I have a commitment the first week in August that I got to go take care of. So at that point, we'll reassess where we're at. But from now until then, we are sticking in Washington, D.C.
I'm with Jim. Sorry, Val's cut out. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
This is BZ, and I was going to say that this is far more than money, and people are starting to get the idea of that. But what I see is that once these official announcements go and the unfettered access begins, it will change, not because of the money, but because it allows the real being to come through of inspiration and possibility and all those just juicy, luscious, colorful bubbles to come through, and it will instantaneously change all in Source's universe.
Absolutely.
Completely. In fact, we were just discussing this. And for those who know, who have worked with me before, I always just start with self. So there were many working on all this who typically aren't seen. And I don't just mean planetary, and everything's going to be coming out, including all this stuff people have been fighting for years regarding extraterrestrials and all that, because you have separation storylines regarding ETs, UFOs, I think Stephen Hawking's been probably the most prominent as far as the voice that they use to push storylines, but also movies, Hollywood, and everything else. So, I have my friends that are in Hollywood who are very excited as well. All of it's going to be made visible, and I'm going to start at least, the White House already knows this is coming down, is that I'm just going to make myself visible. And then anyone else who decides to make themselves visible out of those parts will make themselves visible too. So yes, you'll be seeing the Universals or Galactics, however you want to term it. There's been many names. Really, we only work on energetic signature, which is why everything got changed to energetic signature security, so that this moment could happen. And the White House is very, very aware of that, and people are much more than they appear to be, and it's really just everyone sort of embracing themselves. So I'm going to be making myself visible, and then from there, as everyone feels to do, that's great. And it has never been about money, but money is one of the tools we've used to trigger ourselves out of what we believed ourselves to be, or what we were given to believe ourselves to be. So, does that answer your question, BZ?
Yes, it does. I'm
Did I just start talking?
lusciously having fun with all of the thoughts that are coming right this moment. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Brian, you had something, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of already but as far as the unfettered access, it seems to be the first amazing step. But I'm assuming that also means the end of trading humans in all forms, both energetically and on paper. Can you validate that?
Yeah. Energetically and universally, okay. The human trade system, the slavery system, and the human trafficking actually stopped in July of 2015. Okay, only here on this planet did they continue with the paper trading of humans as cattle using bonds and instruments and securities, but also some of the abductions and all that. That was all planetary. They just didn't believe that trading had stopped universally. And when it did, it really freaked them out. And that's basically, I'd say Putin is probably the most aggressive player that I have come up or have experienced personally in these last 6 years. And, he's really having a hard time too. So if everyone can send him the love, and he knows what the power of love does. If you ever looked at his administration, if you ever looked at the changes he made in this administration, to put out a certain presence, but it was the presence that was behind it that was being dealt with, at least in my experience in my work, was dealing with the presence that was just underlying or underlaying in all of the public presence that he was putting out. I love him to death, and he's the best strategic player that I've ever come across in a long time. And so there was a lot of issue because he goes out and he does the stuff he's done over the last 30, 40 years because he's always had these guys behind him that nobody ever sees except for the U.S. military complex, British military complex. And basically it's, they've been working with non-terrestrials for a very long time. And all of a sudden, as of May 2016, all their support left and basically in their mind switched sides. And Putin was very upset with that. And that's when I got offered to take that offer, shut down the Skype room and all that. It was, right now Putin is just livid. He is very upset because all his non-terrestrial friends left and sided with me. And I've done a lot of work with all those groups, and it wasn't until May 2016. And believe me, I've done more work with them than I did on this planet trying to get everything in order, and with the titles and authorities and everything else, and all my trips and experiences with Rothschilds and, Peace Palace and Switzerland and BIS and everyone. I had to do more work, but, well, not more, just different. But when they realized that I'm always there, and that's the universal security, is that we have access to all thoughts, words and actions. So as they're thinking this stuff out, we're already maneuvering our teams in place. And so when they arrive, they're just finding us there. And I do that here in the planetary, with the planetary complexes as well. I would move myself and they'd be like, she's sitting here. What is she doing here? You know, probably the funnest one was with Tony Alt and Jeffrey Graham with NM Rothschilds, and that whole scenario. But it's good. We're now in a place where they know, no matter what they think, we get it. We know what they're going to plan, and we watch what they're planning, and we're simultaneously planning. So this is where the coordinated cooperation between universal security and national security or global security comes in, so that everyone can use their stuff the way they want to. But if there are still some who are having, let's just call it transitional resistance, right? Still intending to harm someone, those thoughts are already received, and we're able to maneuver so that we can assist them to trigger out of that. And they've actually created their own triggers to trigger out of it. So we just overlight the opportunities they created for themselves to trigger out, and then assist in any other way. And then you never have that issue again. So that's, Brian, I'm so sorry. I don't even remember your question.
No, you answered it.
Yeah, answer it.
Yeah, you answered it.
Okay.
So, okay, but you, just to clarify, you said the planetary trading already stopped. It was just the trading that happened here.
No, the non-planetary trading had already stopped. It was the planetary trading. They were taking physical bodies, but they had nowhere to put them. So instead, you have the refugee stuff that started to go on heavily from in 2015, 2016, right? 2017. Because they really didn't have anywhere to give them. The universal side said, no, we don't need that anymore. We're not doing that anymore. And so then you had these refugees being moved around everywhere. And it was just really a cattle trading, and so they could try to cut more paper and flood the system to try to generate funds. But the thing is, they can't pull any funds out because of the title, authority, and ownership that everyone has on their staff. They can show screens, but they can't pull it out to actually use it. So yeah, all that trading has now officially, you will see that it's ceasing. So people like Susie with their daughter, who's in prison, all that ends. And if there are people that need, because it really is a mind screw being in a prison and Guantanamo, they're going to need some assistance. And that's where the medical teams, the universal medical teams come in, along working in coordination with those here that are also doing the healing and advanced healing methods. So I'm very excited about all of this. Key people from industry, sort of like Kevin Denton, who worked for Boeing, engineer, has been with them for a long time, and he's been one of my team members. He's no longer working for Boeing. It was too corrupt, and he basically did in Boeing what I was doing outside of Boeing. And it was so corrupt, and the money laundering, and we worked together a couple times last year where we came together, and I did the assessments on Boeing's corruption and their money laundering with their creditors, China and everyone. And it was so bad. And at that point, it was like, okay, we need to go. Now's the time to implement. I don't care where everyone is. We just implement, and everyone will just take, they are where they are. And so I just received a call that he's retiring. And of course, Boeing's pissed off because they realized that he was inside and had access because he's worked for them for over 30 years. That's how much detailed planning went into every single person's experiences on this planet. That's how brilliant everyone is. They are inside where they need to be inside, because now they know what it was and how screwed up it was, so that we can go in and make things exactly how they should be. Number one, balanced, and then create from there even better. And there will be no more slave trading, no more human bondage, no more of any of that.
Heather, I have
Go ahead.
What comes up for me in all of this is if you were aware, my feeling is if you were aware and in your heart and understanding the bigger picture, then the idea of forgiveness and moving forward, and that we are all one, is not that difficult a place to go to. In fact, I'm there. So for me, I'll speak for myself. That is not a difficult place at all to go to. My thought had always been, people have about 30 seconds to get their pitchforks, do whatever they need to do to go through of what's happened, and then let it all go, because we can't get to where we ultimately all want to go to if we don't acknowledge, integrate what's happened, understand, but move forward. And, quote unquote, getting the rat bastards and all this kind of stuff doesn't get us to where we want to go. I mean, haven't we already done that enough? So I just want to get your thoughts on that, how to help people move that.
I spoke that out when I did that radio show with Brian and Lisa and Danny and Sasha Stone. Right now I'm seeing a little bit, but not as much as I did before, where people are like, yeah, burn them down, that kind of a thing. And it's the same thing I told Sasha. You're going to find me, if anyone has the intent to hurt anyone in quote unquote judgment or retribution, they're going to find me in between them and their target. Because we all did this, we all played this, and we're all undoing this. So that awareness that we're all one, that awareness that we're creators, so powerful in all of existence. There is no such thing as judgment. And you'll still find me there in between any targets, intended targets, until that finally is never an issue again. And it won't just be me. You're going to find a whole lot of people standing there protecting those that are supposedly an intended target, and also assisting the one that's targeting, because they also need assistance to let go of these feelings of wrongdoing, being wronged, hurt. And I'm not saying that the experience wasn't real. I get that the experience of being hurt and damaged is very real.
I can tell you, Heather, for that first week, when people started getting access, they were so thrilled. The furthest thing from their minds was to arrest anybody or to seek retribution. What they did was they were paying their bills, they were helping their family, their friends, they were spreading the news. And I think overall, the majority of humanity has moved past that, especially the ones who are aware of what is going on and actually listen to these broadcasts.
Yeah.
All of them have really, they just want what is theirs, and the ability to do and be as they choose. That's all any of us ever wanted, was just to have our freedom.
Yeah.
When you brought up a good point, Bob, we saw it. We saw the proof, and that actually was a huge decider for what happened here in DC. Was the joy that was happening, and you could physically feel the lightness of all this heavy judgment and intent of retribution and all of that in that week that you're talking about. It was felt. They want more of that. Everyone wants more of that from all sides. We're all tired. We've all said enough. So that's it. You're absolutely right. That's why, another reason why I was coming to DC, to get that part done. I haven't even looked at all the emails people have been sending me. I can feel them, but this is what's important for everyone. So getting these accounts, that's just the starter, obviously, but it's a significant one that allows people to let go of a lot of stuff.
All right. Well, guys, we're running on just a little over 2 hours. So unless anybody else that's on, Bob, BZ, Bill, has any more questions they want to add, we should probably, why don't we find closure for now? Give these guys a break. Yeah. and we'll hold our intentions and see how the next few days pan out, and pick up on another one if necessary. Something tells me it might not be, but
I love everybody, and just keep everybody in your heart space, and it's done. We're just gonna work on the details.
Yeah. Very
Thank
nice.
you.
Nice
Thank you,
work,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank
Yeah,
you to
thank you
everyone
guys.
for all you're doing.
Do you
Love
have
you guys.
in final closing, Heather? Do you have one final message that you want to make for Mr. Parker Still publicly?
Yes, Mr. Parker Still. I am so excited to give you a hug and to cheer and toast with you. So let's do this.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's all on. Thank
cheers,
you.
guys. Okay, Lisa, that's a wrap.
Thank you, guys.
Night, everyone.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks so much, guys. Catch up with you in a
Thank
couple
Brian.
days.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, BZ.
Yeah,
See you guys later.
we'll get this out as quickly as we can.